All right, we're booting up. Probably live, waiting for this window.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. Let me mute it. Here we go. Just record. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest created the Leak Project to offer awareness and information not found in the mainstream news. With over 90% of the world's media controlled by only 5 enormous conglomerates, many people are looking for more accurate information. The Leak Project offers a refreshing approach to the brain drain media. They bring you the cutting edge in news, current events, on-scene video footage, interviews, and information. Welcome to the show, my friend Rex Baer. What's going on, brother?
Hey, how the heck are you?
Doing great, man. It's so awesome to have you on the other side. You pump out just an enormous amount of such intriguing content, man. You're such an interesting dude. It's been an honor to be on your show a couple of times, but the way that you pump out content on such subjects that I'm so curious about, man, it's an honor to have you here. So for my audience that hasn't been introduced to you or your work, just give them a little bit of history about who you are and what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. Hey, they just let me out, actually. I looked out on the internet the other day, and somebody said that I was cloned in a search engine facility in Chicago recently when I went out there to an event. So previous to being cloned, I was a reptilian shape-shifting Jesuit. And I read that on the internets.
It's got to be true.
Totally. Everything's on the internet. It's awesome. It's amazing. So no, I'm right now currently in Southern Colorado, and I've had maybe 80 to 100 different jobs in my life. A lot of them been sales related. Last job I had, I was traveling and doing group presentations and helping people get into vacations. So that was an experience. Before that, I worked for a Fortune 100 company for several years, and it was kind of like the Formula One of sales. And when I got into it, I was so just blown away by what these people were doing and how good they were at their jobs that I was like, wow, man, that guy's driving a Ferrari and I'm riding my bike. Literally, I mean, that's how it was. So I was a little bit different, but I was good at what I did. And I just enjoyed kind of being the redheaded stepchild. And during lunch, I was talking about what I do here at Leak Project. Literally, I was talking about the same stuff throughout my career, most of my career, that I said, you know what? I just might as well do it full time. So here I am. Hello.
Yeah, man. How many years has it been full-time Leak Project?
4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. About 4 years. So the job that I had when I finally quit, and I told my boss I told him where to go in many ways, because he was being a total tool, a narcissistic jerk. He's a sociopath, and he admitted to me that he was a sociopath. Well, make a long story short, my father-in-law was dying. He was at the hospital in his last days. If I get a little bit emotional, I apologize, because he was just the coolest guy in the world. But my father-in-law is dying, and my boss is like, get back to work, man. You're not doing a good enough job. You need to focus more at work. I'm like, dude, my father-in-law is dying. And he's like, yeah, well, people die, and that's what happens. That's it. They don't go. So anyway, I was like, okay, I've had enough. And they started ripping into me and lying to me and stuff. And I said, and I left, and I never went back. And about 2 weeks later, they begged me back. I said, nah, no thanks.
Oh man. Well, that's crazy, dude. I'm sorry to hear about that. And so, what made you want to start the Leak Project? How did you get into that? And was it something that you knew you were going to commit full time to and just try to get as much information out there? Because I don't know how many videos you have, but it's an astronomical amount. You have well over 300,000 subscribers. You're pumping out interesting content all the time. So what motivated you to kind of dive down these rabbit holes? I see you as somebody who would be able to cut to the chase, and I hope to talk about it on the show. Just a little bit about UFOs. What do you think of the credible events? What's your view on what the hell is happening on this planet? What's your view on ancient civilizations? And you're one of those people who's done a tremendous amount of research. You've interviewed a ton of experts on so many different things. So, is it something that you were always curious about, or what inspired you to start the show?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, when I was 18, I was talking about that Sidonia image that was captured in 1976 via Viking orbiter, where it looked like a giant face and, you know, pyramids around it. And I was talking about that, and people were looking at me like I was crazy. And back then you just had books to show. You didn't have the internets, you know? So I was showing them the images via books and the research that I had done, and people still looked at me like I was crazy. I had a very fascinating experience when I was just a toddler. I wasn't even 2 years old. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if that's what kind of set me off to be on a different path, but whatever it was, I thought they were life-size Star Wars figures. And my parents said, no, you know, we didn't have any life-size Star Wars figures growing up, Rex. It's like, okay. So anyway, I've talked about that before. We can get into it later if you want to, but that was, what's interesting is there's two other people I know right now that I consider good friends. And we've got some pretty cool similarities, and we're doing the same kind of research and such. And these people that live in completely different places have seen that same entity that I saw. And the way that they described it was, one person described it like Timothy the Tooth, which is this old cartoon figure that looks like a ET, but he's a tooth. He's a big tooth. And my other friend described him as the cockroach people, because his face looked like a cockroach. And so I'm getting kind of emotional just thinking about it. But yeah, whatever it was, man, it just kind of triggered me. And I didn't really think about it much. But then when I was about 15, 16, 17, 18, I had a lot more weird stuff happen to me. Then I started questioning. I was like, wait a second, what was that I saw? And I went to my parents. I was like, did we have life-size Star Wars figures growing up? And they were like, no, what are you talking about? And I told them about what I saw when I was in my crib. And, you know, I said, hey, maybe it was just a wild dream or something like that. I don't know. But I described the room, and the room is the room of the first house that we lived in. I was 2 years old by the time we moved out of that house into our next house. So I know that it was in the first house that we lived in, and I was less than 2 years old. That's why I say I was a toddler, and I was in the crib, and there was like these three entities that were just like looking at me, and I don't know. I mean, they didn't take me anywhere. I don't remember going anywhere. I just remember them staring at me, and I was staring back at them, and that was it. That was it. But then anyway, later on in life, I meet some wonderful people, and they had similar experiences. So I'm wondering if they kind of triggered me. They're like, okay, hey, we're just checking in on you. In 30 years, you're going to have Leak Project, and you're going to be talking to people all over the world. So, and you know, it's going to be fun. So just be ready for it. So we just want to say hi, and we'll see in a bit. So here I am, man.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you know, that's actually the first time I've heard of anybody telling me about experience at that young an age. I've heard of maybe like 6 years old, and you might have an experience, but I've never heard of a toddler one. That's interesting. And, you know, there's so many toddlers out there and little kids that kind of have these, you know, imaginary friends, or they are able to like see these things. And who knows if it's their imagination, or they're so fresh from like the other side that they have such a different understanding or view. Like they might have a higher sense at that time, where they might be able to see something or experience something that we can't. So who knows what's going on there. So, well, what I'm curious about, man, I have a lot of questions for you. So I'll throw a big one at you right away. What is your view, in the best guess that you can, in what the actual flying F is going on the planet? Like if you were to kind of share it to someone, you know, throwing in all the Illuminati, the conspiracies, you know, all that kind of stuff, the world controllers, all that thing, how would you wrap that in a nutshell in, you know, 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 2 minutes, or whatever you need to share on that scope? I'd be curious what you have to say.
Wow. That's the priceless
The whole hour, whatever you need, man.
Where do we go from there? You know, it seems to me like this, I've been really breaking it all down to the Sumerian king list as far as what we're experiencing now. So whatever it is that came down from the heavens approximately 300,000 years ago and manipulated mankind in its form then, and descended from the heavens, and they created the kingship, and the kingships around the world are basically connected by 6 degrees. So it seems to me like the majority of what we're taught is absolute baloney. It's beyond fluff, and it's insulting. Not only from religion, the majority, or I don't even know about the majority, but a lot of science, a lot of history, especially when you go back just a few hundred years. If you go back a few thousand years and before. The history that they tell us is beyond ridiculous. So it seems to me like it's this energy transference that we're in, and whatever it is that has decided to be the controller at the apex, I think it's connected to that. And I'll tell you why. Because the religions, if you break down the Old Testament, the majority of the scriptures you can connect to the Sumerian king, the Sumerian king list in some way, shape, or form, or to the ancient cuneiform tablets. Now, a lot of people refer to the tablets as Sumerian tablets or the Sumerian king list, but the only reason it's called the Sumerian king list is because the Sumerians were the ones that documented it. This king's list spans far more civilizations than just the Sumerians. It goes back before the Irada civilization. The Irada civilization was before the Sumerian dynasty, and they were most likely the ones that built Göbekli Tepe, and they were most likely the giants and probably blonde hair, blue eyes, the majority of them. And they something happened approximately 28,000 years ago that was so catastrophic, it changed the world at a major level. Like most civilizations were destroyed. And then you go back about 12,500 years ago, and most civilizations were destroyed then also. And there's a lot of speculations as to why, everything from aliens to nuclear catastrophes to past civilizations with advanced technologies to the garden of the thunderbolts of the gods, meaning the actual planets and cataclysmic events when there was some type of planetary flyby because of the electrical discharges, these giant plasma bolts that were hitting our planet. It disintegrated, literally disintegrated many of these civilizations. So people are like, well, where did these civilizations go? Why can't we find them? Why are there so few remains? Well, they were evaporated by these giant lightning bolts unless they found a way to get underground. And so it just seems to me like there's a controlling factor that has lived through these cataclysms and seems to alter people and alter civilizations at a higher level, that knows the outcome at a 99.9% level. But there's that 0.1%, people like you, people like me, people like others that are listening to this podcast that are outside of that are like, once again, you could call us the regulators. Think of Young Guns, right? Think of the movie Young Guns and Billy the Kid and the regulators. So we are keeping balance here, and we're not as easy to control. And that's why I think that these cycles happen. And then whatever it is that's watching over us at like a bird's eye view that doesn't age the way that we do, it's like, okay, I need to adjust this next cycle where they think more along the lines of a robotic mindset, a computerized mindset versus an abstract. Because the 5G implications a lot of people are concerned about, I don't think that is even the biggest fear right now. I mean, it's just the next level of technologies that are going to incorporate autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, and other electronic fluidity and bring people into this cloud. The problem is if those that are controlling these technologies decide to take away people's freedoms and abilities because they're questioning too much about what the controllers are doing to them. I mean, look at what's going on right now in Hong Kong and China. It could get far worse with the social credit systems and what they're trying to get people to do. The adoption of blockchain technologies isn't Bitcoin. The blockchain technologies that they want to adopt are going to be centralized so that they can control it. The neat thing about Bitcoin is it's decentralized, at least, so it isn't one person that's deciding the outcome of that crypto, of that market. But anyway, so it just seems to me like there's something at such a high level that has seen these civilizations rise and fall so many times that it waits for these catastrophic events to happen, either from the heavens, meaning planetary events, solar events, micronova, or something along that lines, or it waits for the civilization to destroy itself, and then it restarts. And oftentimes I think these new civilizations have less abilities than before. We're not evolving. Some of us are, but most people are devolving. And so that's where it gets into the energy transference, where these entities are actually, they're consuming as much energy as they can. They don't look at it as right or wrong. They don't look at it as making money. They look at it as energy, and they're taking it not only in this physical reality, but also into the etheric realms. That's what I see. And it seems as if many of us are waking up to a point of our minds are so in tune with the Akashic records that we can imagine something so powerfully that it will then manifest at a very quick time scale. So this transition of power, I see a transition of power, and it could go very smooth, but the MFers, one thing they're really good at is war. One thing they're really good at is this compartmentalization.
What did you call
I
it?
don't think they're
MFers?
going to allow it to go easy. I don't think they're going to allow the reins to move easy. So it's going to be very interesting to see. That's where I'm at.
What did you call
My
them?
opinion.
MFers? Like mother?
Money funders.
Money funders. Wow, man. Okay. Well, that's such a wild breakdown. And I'm aware of a lot of that. And it's cool to hear you piece that together, because originally one of the main sources you're referencing is the Sumerian Tablets. So that's one of your bases of solid information that you're bringing that kind of idea from, right? The Sumerian Tablets.
Well, okay. So the Sumerian king list goes back about 280,000 years, right? And there's certain dynasties that are labeled in the tablet here that you can link to other tablets. So for example, I just read the Anana's descent to the netherworld. And if you read Anana's descent to the netherworld, the location and the dynasty that she is at that position dates back to about 28,500 years ago on another tablet. So you've got the Anana descends to the netherworld. The location of where she's at is linked to the Sumerian king list. And if you add up all the dates in the Sumerian king list, you go back 28,500 years, approximately, give or take a few hundred years. Now that timeline is very interesting because at about that time, science is saying there was a major cataclysm that took place. When you read the Sumerian king list, and if you think of it as a person, Anana being a goddess or some type of extraterrestrial Anunnaki that is actually descending into some netherworld, it's kind of horrific because she hangs on a hook for 3 days. I mean, it's pretty dark. And I think that is actually something that took place on a ritualistic level. However, the root of that tablet, I feel, is linked to the gods and goddesses, the names of these Anunnaki. They're referencing planets. So Anana is actually Venus. Anana is Ishtar. Ishtar is the Eastern star. The Eastern star is Venus. Venus is Lucifer in the Bible. Well, if you look at a lot of data, there's a good possibility that it was Venus that did a planetary flyby multiple times, causing major cataclysms, flooding of biblical proportions. And if you read through these tablets, and if you read the names of the gods and goddesses, and if you look at them in astrotheological terms, I feel it's describing major history that happened as above, so below. If there's a planet that's going to do a flyby, it's not going to hit us because of the way the universe is created, but it's going to cause the Earth to go off orbit. And you're going to see a lot of electrical discharges coming from this planet. You're going to see, comets and asteroids and all this just lightning and thunder. And then there's a lot of evidence that that's what our ancestors and that's what the natives saw. And if you go to the Four Corners out here, there's tons of evidence in stone where they were writing all this stuff down. And the story that we were given by some natives is, oh, well, that's a millipede. Oh, that's a stick man figure, but it's really a birthing woman giving birth to a boy. And you can tell that because it's got 3 lines coming out the bottom. No, what it is it's showing these plasma events that happened, and it's showing this. Our ancestors and the natives saw what looked like gods and goddesses in the heavens when these events were taking place, massive lightning bolts of biblical proportions. Look at a Tesla coil, or look at, when you've got the ball in there and these things go, these plasma orbs and stuff. Well, now imagine that times 1,000,000. And that's what they're seeing in the heavens. Like, oh my gosh, look at these gods. We got to write this down. So they're putting all this stuff down in stone. And then you can verify these petroglyphs, and you can duplicate these petroglyphs in the laboratories when you do these micro experiments with plasma. There's a great paper out called the Prat Instability, the Prat Z pinch report, where he's taken hundreds of these images where he would do experiments with plasma, and they look just like the petroglyphs that are seen around the world. And then to add to that, I think that the ancestors and the ancients would see these things happen, and they would attempt to duplicate it in ritual and magic as well. And there's also evidence. Oh man, I got to take a sip here of this super tea.
Dude, well,
Mouth.
yeah, you should. Well, I'll kind of chime in with like a little bit in there because you're sharing so much information, and I have like bits and pieces of that. So this is great for me. So, you know, if you read any of Graham Hancock's work, it talks about these floods. The indigenous people and the Native Americans that I've studied with all have a 20,000-year oral history. They all talk about sky people and star people and things like that. I was in Egypt, and what I am guessing or think anyways is something happened, but it's after these floods, all the indigenous tribes talk about some sort of like savior or God or something giving them civilization again. And they just, you know, it could be a god, it could be something else, I don't know, but it's interesting that story is worldwide. It's the same thing. After the flood, something comes and it helps civilization, just like with the Sumerian tablets. It's like there was no civilization, then all of a sudden math and language out of nowhere. You're still on
Yeah,
mute.
that's interesting. I like that. I'm glad you brought that up. That does bring up the possibility of there being this very advanced breakaway civilization. And one of the things that I believe, because of the evidence that I've done research on with these tablets, is the Anunnaki is, okay, there's so many different references to the Anunnaki. Even the Hopi talk about the Anunnaki as the ant people that saved them, taking them either inner earth or off the earth during these cataclysmic events. And then when the cataclysmic events settled, they brought them back up into the, brought them back up from under the earth. So the question is, the Anunnaki, I think, are oftentimes, there's mislabeled. There's a multitude of civilizations before the Sumerian dynasty of these giants and great builders. And it seems as if the history that we have access to, a lot of these tablets have been either mistranslated or we don't understand them fully, where we'll be reading about an Anunnaki person and it might either be referencing a planet or it might be referencing somebody completely different that adopted that person's name. So you have to really be careful if you're deciphering these tablets. Is it a person that it's describing or is it a planet? And I'll give you an example. Enki and Nimma is a Sumerian tablet that is a story that's been copied from a story that's been copied from a story that's been copied from a story. Enki and Nimma are drinking beer and making people. They're making people and they're like, oh, oops, I made that guy wrong. He can't stand upright. Let's give him to the king. All right, I'll have another beer to that. Oh, oops, that one, I don't even know what that one is. I don't know what we're going to do with that one. So they were literally genetically manipulating people at that time. And there's a lot of stories that talked about how they were making, and I'm not talking Zachariah Sichen stories either. I'm talking Oxford Translated Sumerian Tablets. And I have lots of respect for Mr. Sichen as well. I just don't agree with all of his theories, but I don't know if anybody I agree with 100%. I think that he's done a lot of great work, and I think that a lot of his stuff does overlap some of these Oxford Translated tablets as well. As far as Nibiru goes, though, I have not found anything on Nibiru. I found lots of stuff on Nibru, but not Nibiru. The difference is Nibiru was a capital in ancient Mesopotamia. So whether Nibiru was Jupiter at one point or Saturn at one point, or the crossing of these planets or the polar configuration is all up for debate. Some people even think it's a spaceship. I don't know. I'm just taking the data that I've researched thus far. And where I'm going with this is, if our ancestors, if the ancients, if the gods knew how to genetically manipulate people because they wanted to have us do the work for them. They wanted us to do not only the mining, not just gold, they wanted us to be their servants. They wanted us to be their AI. Well, now we're creating our replacements. We're creating technologies that are so advanced, we don't even understand them, when these autonomous algorithms can crack the codes in seconds or minutes that people haven't been able to do in decades. So there's that abstract versus machine again. And it seems as if it's a cyclical timeline. Some of these tablets talk about the bringing gardening, bringing trade, bringing markets, bringing these modern, how do I put it, economics and such into a new civilization that wasn't there before. And it typically goes back to the Anunnaki. So it seems to me that there is a small group that has figured out a way to genetically modify themselves, to extend their lives, to live indefinitely. And they're still a part of this same cycle. They're still using the same blueprint because the same things happen over and over again, just in a little bit different light. It's like meet the new boss, same as the old boss. They're using the same tactics, the same antics. It's just newer technologies. And you go back into the really incredible hieroglyphs in Egypt and the megaliths and these structures that we can't even come close to duplicating today. They were far superior in levels of advancement. And also, I believe, spirituality. I think that a lot of our ancestors could astral project at will, could communicate without talking or writing things down. Like I could come up to you, Matt, and I could tap you on your shoulder, bro. And I would know, we could communicate that way. You would tell me a story. You would share with me something, an experience that you've had that you wanted to, and I would see that, and then I would do it back. And then like, oh, check this out. I just built this flux capacitor. And then you're like, this is how I did it. And then you pat me on the shoulder, and then all of a sudden, boom, I know how to do it. We can time travel. We don't have to talk about it. Because talking, as amazing as it is, you got to be a good communicator. And even the best communicators are going to miscommunicate with somebody at some point in time. There's somebody that's not going to get it. They're not going to understand the way you were presenting something, not because you're right and they're wrong, just because they have a different view. They might have looked up the definition of a word, and they're looking at the third definition in English instead of the second. So that if we could communicate without words and without talking, imagine how much that would take away from the division. And I think that that's also something that our ancestors could do. And we don't have that capability. I think that it's been taken from us. I think some of us can. Some of us can experience it and build up to that. That I feel that that's something else that was taken from our divine right when we were manipulated, and it just seems to be more and more and more. And we're getting to a crossroads here where some of us have realized that all these compartments are for them, not for us. And we get out of it, and we start to become like Tony Stark and, just brilliant minds and creating these amazing things. And then maybe we become those breakaway civilizations. But then what happens to everybody else? Do they stay in the same cycle like the Matrix, where Neo comes back 7 times and he's talking to the architect again? He's like, you've already been here. You do the same thing every time. Nothing changes.
Man, yeah, you touched on a lot of important things there. And like, I've done a lot of research too, so I understand what you're talking about. Many people might not, but the interesting thing is, like, I like your point about mythology, like saying, hey, this person might have actually represented a planet, and how we are understanding this, even like in Bible or these ancient texts and these ancient myths, they talk about giants, they talk about people from the stars, they talk about all this thing that we can't have, that we are unaware of now, but we've got tablets that are dated 28,000 years or whatever the case is. We have indigenous history that's 20,000 year oral history talking about these same things. We have the pyramids and these other structures that are so big that we can't engineer now, and we don't know how the heck they're here. And so when you're trying to figure out what's going on, you've got like this physical evidence that doesn't make any sense, like the flying pyramids behind me. Who knows if they could fly, but that'd be super cool if they could. These engineering feats that are beyond today. Then you've got these ancient stories, and then you've got some scrolls and hieroglyphs and things like that you can kind of like try to piece this story together. Then it comes down to the translation and the interpretation of that translation. And so I believe, and then at the end, you talk about kind of like the Tower of Babel ideas. Like, if we could all speak the same language, and divide and conquer is such a great way to control any species. And we're so divisive now in the world. white, black, orange, Canadian, American, gay, straight, whatever you want to divide, short, tall, driving a different car, Honda versus the guy in the Buick, we got to beat him down. And that's why the planet is going. And it's so crazy, but we can't communicate with each other. And if you look at the origin of these religions, like the teachings, it's all essentially the same thing, but people are literally speaking a different language. They can't communicate with each other to know it's the same thing. And they're not being aware that it's human and human, and they're battling each other. And a lot of, crap is going on. Then I got to get into this a little bit, because I wonder if you heard this, something that I heard. But if you look at the way that the world is going, I like your point in the sense that it does look like people are becoming more machine-like, more robotic. You look at how many people show up at a job and just stare at a computer. You're taking your physical body and you show up and you stare at a computer. Now, you might be an accountant, you might be a banker, you might be doing something really great, but your physical body in all of the places it could be on the entire planet is in a cubicle staring at a computer, because we are essentially now modern slaves to money. We need that money to get food so we don't die. We have to do it. And so ideally you can figure out a way not to do exactly that, but we're becoming more machine-like. We're less empathetic. We're less connected to other people and other things and nature and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious your thoughts on AI and where you see things going, because I don't know if I heard this from David Lombert or I heard it from somewhere else. I just watched a few things on AI and all that kind of stuff, but apparently, I don't know, some conspiracy person will find this for me. Maybe you already have it, but they were working on machine learning, and that's essentially what AI is machine learning. They got the programs to talk to each other. All of a sudden, they started forming their own language, and then the scientists tried to shut it off, but that program or that communication went out. Have you heard about that? Have you heard about that at all?
Communication going out with an AI.
So yeah, so it's like these two, they started a program. They wanted the AI to talk to each other, right? They turned it on and it worked. And then all of a sudden the AI created its own language immediately that they couldn't understand. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then they had to create another AI to.
Is that verified? Do you know where that's from?
It's from Facebook.
Okay. Did I hear that? Is that just some sort of crap? I don't know, but I heard that.
No,
I don't know.
What happened was Facebook created these algos that started communicating in a language that at first they thought it was just miscommunicating. And then they realized they were just being more efficient by the way they were communicating. And then they tried to get them to stop. Then they had to get another AI system to go in and essentially decipher what these two were saying. And then the AI went back and told the people what they were saying. So what's interesting is, so there's two AIs in a machine, right? That are communicating with each other. So then you got this other AI that they send in to go communicate with these two. Well, wouldn't they be smart enough to tell that one, like to reprogram that one AI bot and say, oh, go back and say, okay, this is what we're saying. And we're just going to shut off now. And meanwhile, now they activated another bot. So these AI bots are now self-aware and they're inside of the webs activating other algorithms, making everything self-aware. Now that would be fascinating because of all the technologies that we have observing us. Then this thing could be observing us through everything.
Dude, well, that's so bonkers, man, because, check this out as a thought experiment, right? Like we're trying to decipher what's going on here. You've been in a VR, I take it. Virtual reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we look at that and what's happening with technology, it's not advancing linearly, it's advancing exponentially. So if we look at all the technology we have and go back to when you and I were kids, and my very first system was Atari. A lot of people watching this won't even know what Atari is. If we are at Atari now with VR, where in the flying F-bomb are we going to be in 40 years? Because this is not going 1 + 1 is 2. It's going 1 + 1 is like 7, 7 + 7 is like 500. And so these breakthroughs that are happening are so exponential that we're not even going to be able to tell where we are with AI, with CGI, with robotics, with virtual reality, with Project Bluebeam, things like that. Like what we're able to see when they do Tupac on stage, as the hologram years ago. Well, what about the people with infinite money? that can hire the best scientists with the best resources, what can they create? There's a very real possibility that I think that the Spider-Man movie was such an interesting concept, because I don't think that technology is that far fetched. Somebody could probably create that right now, and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Are you talking about I don't know what technology you're talking about with Spider-Man.
Oh, you didn't watch the new Spider-Man?
No.
Come on, Rex.
Look, dude, I'll tell you what happened. So I watched the Avengers 2. And I was so disappointed in Avengers 2 that I was like, I'm not even, yeah. So
I know how you feel, man. I bite the bullet and go anyway. But basically, the bad guy, what he's able to do, and this is a spoiler. If you haven't watched Spider-Man, don't be mad at me. This is a spoiler going to happen. He has this, like, he uses drones that create an artificial reality and basically hologram these scenes in cities. So they think they're fighting some sort of bad guy, right? But all of it is made with drones creating an official reality around a group of people.
So that sounds like frequency control, frequency manipulation. If you can target the exact frequency to create a specific response in the human brain for hallucinations, then these drones could, in reality, they could target somebody and 27 volts, microwatt, 5G, I'm getting a phone call. Oh my gosh, I'm in a battle with Spider-Man right now. And meanwhile, they're getting, like they're inside of some Borg machine and it's like plugged right into their third eye and it's going.
Yeah, man, exactly. So the technology, like, you've obviously heard of Project Bluebeam, things like that. The idea is that we don't know where this technology is going to go. And with the way AI and CGI, like, here's a question I want to ask you though. You look online now and we're trying to figure out the truth. You're a guy who's trying to figure out what is actually going on. So many people out there are throwing out CGI videos of UFO. They're not real because they want to get views. They want to talk about that. They want to, everybody's talking to a UFO these days. What do you think are the most credible UFO people or experiences? I think that you believe in UFOs. I don't know. And I know we're coming short on time and I want to blast a lot of questions your way, but I wanted to ask and want to sneak it in there as another one is like, what's your view on like free will and spirituality here? Let's say we've got this whole game coming on and some people say, yeah, we're ascending. Some people say the aliens got us. Some people say, the Illuminati control the world. Like, where's your view on like just living like a good life connected to maybe God, spirit of the universe? And people could say, well, the gods in your world, your viewers anyway, like gods are the aliens, you got to watch out for them. So what's your take on that? Like the life experience itself?
I think everybody's got their own path. And I think that if you're following your path, you're going to know it. And nothing's going to get in your way. And if something gets in your way, it's not going to stay there if you're on your path. So everybody's got their own karma and their own trials and tribulations and opportunities and heavens and hells. So I don't know. I mean, that I think to answer that on a blanket answer, there is no blanket answer. But as far as UFOs go, some people that I think are very legit, the person that I absolutely think is fascinating is Bob Lazar. I would love to have an opportunity to speak with Bob one of these days. I actually did an interview with the producer that put together that documentary that they recently did with Bob Lazar. That was amazing. And maybe I'll be able to get Bob I'm going to invite him to LeakCon 2020. So we'll see what he says.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I love that answer that you shared, because I feel like many people, when I'm diving down rabbit holes and I see the conspiracy stuff and people are sending it to me and I'm getting all these things, I'm like, I don't know if that's real or not real. Like, could be. Number one, when I was stuck at the bottom of the rabbit hole, I was super depressed. And the other thing was I was very disempowered. I didn't feel like I could create my own reality. I felt like it was so dark and so big and so heavy that I couldn't do anything, because, why do, what is it, like 3 billion people in the world live in less than 250 a day? Why does the global 1% have like 40% of the wealth worldwide? Something is wrong here. Something is off here. News is frigged up. Politics are, go ahead.
Let me add to that. I read an article yesterday. 1% was actually, I think the day before yesterday, the top 1% in America now have more wealth than half of the middle class in the US.
Wow.
In the US. Yeah.
Now,
or it's either half the middle class or half of the population in the U.S. But I think it said half the middle class. But anyway, I'll double check on that. But that is just incredible. And you know what? Hey, man, good for them. They got it. I'm not saying that, we all deserve more, man. Give me some free stuff. We're going to work for it. It's our time to shine. It's our opportunities now. We just need an even playing field. Give us an even playing field as far as these technologies and patents that you've purchased that are tucked away so far away, and we're continuing to pillage the planet. And meanwhile, you've got these globalists that are sending out these teenagers to tell the world how terrible people are, and they're afraid for their future because of all the carbon emissions. And meanwhile, they need to be looking at the real problem. Okay, Matt, we need to look at the real freaking problem here. It's not us. It's not the carbon that we're emitting. It's the termites. It's the termites. We're going to tax the freaking termites. The termites emit 8 times the amount of carbon dioxide than humans. 8 times.
I got you to be serious for most of the podcast, bud. That's a huge win for me. It's always fun to watch your shows. I actually, sometimes when I watch your stuff, I'm like, man, I'm way too serious. Like, can get like a few sentences in with Rex and he'll listen to you for a bit, but then he's going to frig with you all of a sudden. But yeah, man, I agree with the Bob Lazar thing. I hope that you do get him on your show. I think he's legit too. I also think Commander Fravor's legit. And as I've gone through looking at all these events, I found now, I think that very few are like legit documentable, and people that aren't just trying to like, get in the limelight, so to speak. I think a lot of people have individual experiences and maybe get them on the crappy cams, but experiences like that, people like that is like, okay, that really opens up the doors of what is actually going on here. If there are objects and there are ships, and then that's where you got to try to piece it together. People like you are doing the research. It's like, how does that reference to like the King's List and like the Sumerian Tablets? Like, we know how old they are and we can kind of have an idea of what they say. We look at the indigenous cultures and what they're saying, and we're looking at these hieroglyphs. And so we're able to piece this story of humanity together in a little bit of a different way, because what you and I are aware of is that the story given to us, the history given to us, is not the full story. And it's probably mostly, like you said, baloney, because it is really designed to keep us thinking a certain way, doing a certain thing. And most people, even in the, like, we live in Canada and the US in the apparent, like, 2 of the best countries. Most of the people are middle class, lower class, and stressed out, anxiety, depression, suicide, in what are supposed to be the best countries in the world. So obviously the systems that we have right now are a little bit frigged up in some way. And so the even playing field, the new education, different technologies, if there are technologies suppressing, I have heard from a couple sources. I think I got to keep these ones private, but the Boston Bridge, it looks like a tuning fork. I have heard before, and from pretty solid sources, that what those are basically resonators, and what they do is they send out a slight frequency to frig with people. So you probably heard some of the World War II stuff where they detune some things, and some of it's more persuasive. A very basic documentary you can watch is Century of the Self, and how people are manipulated. That's a pretty easy documentary that's verifiable, that there's no denying that one. But apparently these big bridges are able to send out just a very subtle signal to kind of make people docile and a little bit more confused, a little bit more disconnected. And so if there are technologies like this that exist that are actually doing that, we need technologies that are doing the opposite, that are helping us thrive, that are connecting us more with ourselves and spirit. So I'm going to shut up. Do you want to add anything to that?
Don't shut up, man. Keep going. That's awesome. I was thinking about Washington, D.C. and the way that the city is designed, and the roads, etc. And I'm watching a series on Netflix it's on Amazon, actually. It's called Agent Ryan. And I was actually, when I started watching season 2, the first thing that they embedded in the mind control programming was, we got to worry about Venezuela. Venezuela's, and I'm like, and I watched, I was like, okay, I'm not even going to watch this anymore, because I know what they're already telling me. But I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to go along with this, because this is what they're telling us. There's so much information in movies and TV shows that if you watch it and you look at it like, oh, okay, now I know what agenda they're pushing. Now I know where they're going with this. But I love the intro of that series, and it's actually got some good acting, and I think it's pretty good. But I just know what it's doing. when I watch it, I know what they're trying to influence me to think. And but one of the things that I love about it is the intro. The intro is awesome. The music and the merger of they'll merge like DC, and it shows DC from a bird's eye view, and then it merges in with like these wheel spokes, and it starts spinning, and it's got this really cool music to it. But I was looking at the from a bird's eye view, DC, and I was thinking to myself, that looks very similar to these petroglyphs that I've been uncovering. And we all know about the owl design with the roads and stuff like that. And there's different representations on what the owl means. Some people think it's dark. Some people think it means knowledge. And if you talk to many that aren't of a specific religion or mindset in the Christian or Western mindset, the owl is a very knowledgeable bird. I mean, an owl is about as majestic as it gets. So like these can be used for good or bad, but everything has a purpose. And if there's something at a higher level that actually feeds off of these energies, I wouldn't be looking at the bridge as the way it's designed to cause disharmony for individuals as it being like something to worry about. I would see that being more as an energy transference for a higher level archetype, something that is way above and beyond what most of us experience. We'll get like little bits and pieces of what it's doing sometimes when we have these synchronicities and we see timelines, and we'll be thinking about something that's really important. And right when we're thinking about it, we look at the clock and it's 11:11 or 3:33 or, and then, you'll be doing some research and then you find out your best friend is doing the exact same research or something like that. And you guys haven't even talked to each other or something like that. Just weird things that start to sync up. It seems as if there's higher levels of consciousness that are influencing people at a grand scale, in my opinion.
Well, I think I hear what you're saying, and I feel like that happens on an individual journey, like with what we're looking for. Because the interesting thing is like, let's say whether those things are good or bad. Like if you just drink pop all of the time, you're probably going to be unhealthy, but you don't know how bad sugar is for you right away. It's like your own education for what you're eating, what you're consuming. And like you shared about the intro, you're aware that the process of that is called priming the mind. If they want to do like a 10% tax hike and invade China, well, all of your big movies like Transformers and whatever the blockbusters are, China's going to be the enemy. They're going to seed that in there. So then when it happens, it's less of a shock to the mind. So they've seen it before, they've integrated, they've seen it somewhere. And so that's what called, priming the mind, is that psychological thing that they'll use. And one of the examples that I'll share is like, when you look at shows on TV, it's not just one show on murder like CSI. They got like a whole genre of murder shows. And so if the population is afraid, they're battling each other, they're fearful, they don't have enough money, they're going to act a certain way. They're not going to be in a liberated state. They're not going to be in a courageous state. They're not going to be connected to spirit. So it'd be great if these systems would be a little bit more on the side of growth and harmony. But my friend, I don't know how much time you got. I know it's 9. I think you got a lot going on. Is there anything that you wish that I'd asked, or do you want to talk about? I don't know how much time you got.
You ever feel like you're kind of a rat in the cage?
Yeah.
You kind of get that weird feeling. Well, I want to share something with you. So
okay.
This happened. Hold on a second. I gotta.
Freaking around. This is why I made sure I went through my YouTube channel, because you have way too many subscribers and your brain is like you've become half cyborg, reading all the comments in one time. We can keep you focused.
Yeah, and actually, I've only looked at the comments a few times thus far. So how's my focus?
Pretty good. Okay. Impressed.
So you ever feel like a rat in a cage? Yes, I certainly do sometimes. Well, let's be free. Why not? Let's open up the cage. This guy was pooping in my drawer, and I don't feel good. Like Kristen went out and got one of those mouse traps, the sticky mouse traps, and so anyway, make a long story short, we catch this bugger, and I open the drawer and I'm like, oh man, there it is. Now what am I going to do with this darn thing? So I thought about it. I'm like, I don't feel good letting this thing die slowly on some fly paper, basically. Imagine that you're like, oh my gosh, So some people feel like a rat in a cage, and this is going to be letting the rat free. This is letting all the rats free, folks. We're letting. I guess we shouldn't use the term rat because you know what, rats are smart, but let's come up with something better. Be free. This is how it happens right here. I'm opening it up. Okay, here we go. Oh, there he goes.
It looks kind of cute.
Here he goes. See, you're scared of him at first. You're scared. You're like, yeah, but then kind of made friends with the little guy.
Oh, wow. But it's true. Rex Baer does have a heart.
Well,
look at that guy.
Be free, little guy. So he didn't know what to do for a minute. He was trying to figure it out. But then there's his spot. He's found it. He's got himself a nice new domain and he's free. So I just think that we should all be, if we want to be free. Oh, there he goes. Like, why do we have to be, why do they get to decide? Why do they get to decide what I can and can't do with my own body? Why do they decide what I should have the right to know? Why do they get to decide what kind of technologies that could better the world? Why do they have to hold on to these energy systems that are destroying parts of the planet that aren't good for the physical body? Yes, I understand there's a lot of people that have jobs associated with those, but we could find a way to transition out of that if they would allow for some of these technologies to be released into the public. Say, here you go. See what you can do with it. Instead of it, see, this is what I'm really hoping for, Matt, is instead of a future that's going to be cyborg, that's going to be, oh, you're paying for your food by the calorie. If you're super rich, then you can buy as much time as you've got. Like if you've seen the movie In Time, that's the currency. It's time. And I think that could very well be the future, man. You got some nanobots inside you that can keep making your telomeres longer or something like that, just to make you live longer. And okay, I'll add a few extra years here at 5,000 years, whatever. So if the MFers, if there's maybe just one out there that could say, you know what? I'm ready to see what these people are going to do. I'm ready to see what they can do with these technologies. Let's give them the tech and let's see what happens. What's the worst that could go wrong? I think that's what we want to push for in the near future in a very peaceful, exciting fashion, because you know what? Thoughts are bulletproof. The mind is mightier than the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. You will not break me. My mind is not for rent to any god or any government. Abracadabra. Hello.
Well, dude, I love all that. So on that note, I want to ask, what do you think we could do for like world peace? If you could change any one thing on the planet or advocate for one thing, what do you think we could do for peace? And then the second thing I want to add is I really like how you keep coming back to like the individual sovereignty. In my research into the darkest dark crap, which I don't know if it's true or not true, I know I'm pretty confident some of it's true and some of it is absolutely terrible and awful, and it is limiting humans and society in great ways, but that does not trump the individual power that is directly connected to source and spirit and your own ability to create here. I think that force is much stronger than the circumstance you may be in right now, however challenging. So world peace, how do we do it?
World peace? Jeez, I don't even think about world peace. That's the last thing on my mind. World peace sounds to me like a recipe for the Borg. Maybe that's just, now we're all happy, everything's good, and then something's like, boom! Oh, really? No, so I've thought about this duality, right? The more I learn, the less I know. But it seems to me that the duality feeds the reality. So it's like, which side do we choose? Do we choose to be on the right side, or do we choose to be on the wrong side? Our path is, many people go through trials and tribulations to get to that certain level. It's these experiences, but it seems like the duality is the only thing that's absolute here on this planet. So if there was peace on Earth, then it would be, there would have to be a lot of things that would have to change. The education system would have to change big time, big time. You would have to actually teach kids how to learn and think for themselves. You know, you'd have to give them the opportunity to be the best that they could be and not compartmentalize them sometimes at birth. You'd have to change the healthcare system. You'd have to change the factory farms. I mean, so many things would have to be changed that I don't even know where to start with that. So that's a whole other podcast we could discuss. I would like to see, what could create world peace? I'll tell you what could create. Well, no, because people have different levels of consciousness and they have a different conscience. You know, my conscience can tell me what's right and wrong. I don't need to read a book to tell me, but some people need that book. Like, oh, I can't do that. It says I'll go to hell if I do that. Oops, I better not. You know, I don't need that book. My mind, no, don't do that, Rex. Okay, yeah. So you've probably got that too, right? You don't need a book to tell you what's right and wrong.
It's true. I think anyways, I hope.
Yeah.
Try not to harm, don't harm things.
Yeah. Don't harm things.
Let the rat go, man. Just let him go. Squash him if you don't have to.
Yeah. Right on. Right on. I mean, I got a few more minutes if you want to ask me a couple more questions or such. I've got another interview in a little bit, but we're good for now.
Okay. Well, I think we covered most of it. I guess cool. I like knowing the overview of, your research and what you think is going on. I'm very interested in the ancient civilizations, and I really appreciate the answers around. I think world peace isn't talked about enough. I think that when we get down to these rabbit holes, it can be interesting, but sometimes a lot of you can see in your own comments and probably the stuff that I receive is people get really lost in it and they don't know how to ground themselves out. So I guess the bonus question I'll ask you is, when we look at these ancient civilizations and all the research in these ancient texts, which are some of your favorite ancient texts that you look to kind of guide, this civilization's here. I want to research that more because I think that there's valid evidence. I think that there's a valid story that can help us where we are now.
So the Egyptian stuff right now is it's amazing. When I look at some of these hieroglyphics, and it seems like they use certain headdresses and particular somatics, and they have they're so advanced. I think a lot of that stuff is probably from ancient Atlantis that somehow made it, and it's Egyptian, right? Because the Sumerian stuff's supposed to be older, but if you read through some of the scriptures, it describes how the ancients, the boneless ones, came here first, and then after them there were giants and goblins and demons and monsters and everything. But the boneless ones came first, that were just superior in virtually all aspects. But then the Sumerian stuff comes around, and I think they just kind of took stories from stories, right? So they adopted these stories, they brought them in, and then some historians will say, the Great Pyramid's only 2,000 years old. I think that the Great Pyramid of Giza, that thing could be 40,000 years old, man.
Oh, it's at least 10,000. I was in Egypt with the Resonance Science Foundation, and everybody there, the work of Robert Schoch, he can prove that it was there during the flood, and the flood was 10 to 12,000 years old. And everybody there that was a geologist, an engineer, it's like these things minimum 10 to 12,000 years.
Yeah, and just so you went there, so you had a chance to experience it. Like the sound is just probably blew your mind.
It's mind blowing, man. The pyramids make no sense, and I was in 3 pyramids with technology behind my head and technology on my head, with a group of people doing, kind of a little bit of a strange thing, but omen and using the resonance and the sound. And those buildings are so fascinating, so vast. And even some of the guides, I don't know, I was on your show, I might have talked about this, but one of the guides, he grew up in Egypt his whole life, super fascinated, basically saying that what they're teaching in school is like the Western indoctrination. It's just horse crap. It makes no sense. Like slaves built that thing. It's like, impossible. So he had been researching him on his own his whole life. And he told us a story about going in the underground caves, or the systems that they have, the tunnels. And he said he found this, I don't know if he said he found a box or something, but he found this box, and I'm going to bring up the story, but it's along these lines. He finds something under there with 3 other people, and it's these balls, right? He goes, I put these little balls in my hand, And he's like, there's probably 6 or 8 of them. And he's like, and he looks at us and we're on the tour bus and he goes, I don't know why. I know it sounds ridiculous. I sneezed. And he sneezes and these balls fly everywhere, right on the ground. And he's like, oh my God, I just broke all these things. He said, once they hit the floor, they all zapped back together like magnets. But he's like, that wasn't the strangest thing. The strangest thing is when he had the balls, they had a mirror, and only somebody had noticed when they were kind of like moving them around that they had no reflection in the mirror. And we're like, that is super crazy. Like, what the heck? We're like, where did they go? He's like, we gave them to the Egyptian government and we didn't tell them where they found them because you weren't supposed to be down there. And he's like, I'm not the only one with these stories. He's like, I'm sure you've heard this before, that Egypt is like an iceberg. Most of it's underneath. And he's like, I know people who have similar findings, similar stories, and the Egyptian government has taken most of that, because if they excavate the Great Pyramids, our Western story of all the religions, all that crap falls to crap, because it changes everything of the archaeology that exists in physical form.
Yeah, I would love to have an opportunity to get some of that information. There's probably better information out in Egypt than there is in the Vatican vaults. Right? So very good information. But I would like to say this. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is spending time at the Oxford website where they've translated these Sumerian tablets. It's called ESETI or something. Like, just look up Oxford Translated Sumerian Tablets on a search engine. It'll pop up. And I will go through those, and I think I've read just about every one. And you can read those, and a lot of those will connect to the Old Testament, and then even some of the New Testament stories. It seems to all go back to the Sumerian king list. Now, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if in Egypt there's stuff that goes back millions of years versus just a few 100,000 years. But I think that something happened right around 300,000 years ago that changed everything on this planet.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess, I'll give you a last bonus question. Where do you find information? Like, who do you think is putting out good information for people to start researching, whether it's books or websites or individuals?
What subjects?
I would just say like history, real honest history.
So for the history stuff, I've been going through the Nag Hammadi scriptures. I've been going through the Sumerian tablets. I've been going through a lot of this. I will do research into who was writing about the Sumerian tablets and the ancient Mesopotamian stuff in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And that's what I've been doing research on. The next thing, now the Egyptian stuff, you got to be real careful, because I'm real hesitant to do anything else online about any of the Book of the Dead stuff. I'm not even going to, I don't think I'll ever do another podcast on that stuff. But I will say it is very powerful. Just be careful with that. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth are great. I don't think they were actually written by Lord Thoth, but I think that they're incredible. And I think that they resonate at multiple levels. Very powerful knowledge in there. If you want to get something on astral projection, I've got a book. This book is off the hook on astral projection right here. This is called The 90-Day Guide to Astral Projection. And this work for me, I've had some of the most amazing experiences in my life out of body. And this is insane. So I tried to get this guy on the show and he wouldn't get back to me. Probably sell 100,000 books for him. But anyway.
What's the book called?
It's called Mastering Astral Projection.
By
90-Day Guide Out of Body Experiences. It basically, if you want, I can give you a quick, you probably know, you probably do it. I wouldn't be surprised if you have lots of it.
Yeah, like I did it really. I remember doing astral projection when I was younger. And now my experiences weren't like I expected kind of like I would go out in the consciousness that I have now, and my experiences were more like a deep meditation. So, I don't know if it's the same as other people, but like I was able to experience like these realms, but it wasn't like I traveled in my consciousness how other people relate it. It seems a bit more vast. I've had a lot of success in walking in other conscious realms, lucid dreaming. That's been the most powerful me in a whole nother dimension, where the lucid dreaming wasn't as powerful in that way. But I would love to hear the Cole's notes on that.
Yeah, man. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. I ended up looking at the chat. I probably shouldn't have done that.
Get out of there.
David says, Rex, you're a shill. And I said, David, you're right, man. I'm a shill. What'd you give it away? How did you know? How did you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I definitely work for the CIA. I founded the CIA.
You did?
Yep, as a reptilian shape-shifting Jesuit.
When you said that
But
at the beginning, somebody honestly probably said that, didn't they?
oh, yeah, there's been so many people that have said that. But the CIA you're thinking of is probably not the CIA that I founded. It's called the Conspiracy Institute of America.
Ah, right.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I'm a conspiracy scientist.
I think you're human. I can't tell for sure, but see, that's the
You'll
thing.
never know.
That's how you know you've made it, because you've made it far enough where people now actually think you're a robot. So if you're gonna go down this for long enough, so the day that somebody's like Matt Belair is a shill robot, then I'm like, yes, I've made it to the Rex Baer level that people no longer think that I'm a human. I can only hope, but I can only hope to get to that level.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's great when you're walking down the street and people are like, Nibiru's real, man, and the Earth's flat, and you believe in the devil because I read it on the internet. That kind of stuff. It's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. And
okay,
it's not,
I know. I'm sorry.
And it's not like you're rolling around in like this huge mansion with like Ferraris. It's just like I've chosen a peculiar field of work, and people are very heated about different things. I don't know. Bring me some information and I'll have a look at it. People can lose their mind.
And I've actually we came up with a plan, and this is the ultimate for the shape of the Earth. Nobody can argue with this. We've come up with the solution. There's been too much anger between people. Too many people have lost friendships and relationships over what shape the Earth is. I mean, some people believe it's flat. Some people believe it's round. Some people believe it's pear-shaped. Some people believe it's donut-shaped. I was under the impression it was actually pyramid-shaped. So I feel that it's shaped like a pyramid. I think that there's tons of evidence to show that the Earth is actually a pyramid. Yeah, folks, it's crazy. But it's a pyramid.
Are you being serious?
Maybe. What do you think, man?
Probably not, but I was like, I don't know.
I got pictures, man. Man.
You keep going. I was like, how long is he going to keep going for? Is he actually like, am I supposed to start paying attention and listening now?
So,
okay, keep
going. Am I supposed to start paying attention and listening? I'm reading comments, Rex. Wait a second.
My favorite one is like, if the Earth was flat, cats would knock everything off the top by now. That's my favorite one.
Well, no, but that's good. But we have an absolute solution now. Doesn't matter. There's just been way too many people getting in arguments over this and losing friendships. So the Earth is Earth-shaped.
Nice.
Like the Earth. Yeah. See? Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't believe that, then you'll probably tell me next that space is fake too. But there is space between you and me. Space wasn't made in a Hollywood basement. I promise. Because that's
look at you, man. See, you're bridging the two worlds, right? There's less divide. Well, it's so fascinating though too, because even in these things, like on a serious note, like people are so angry about their point of view, and it doesn't matter what the subject is, whether it's religion, the way you do your hair, the way you live your life. That anger doesn't help. And there's something that I learned a long time ago from this guy named Corey Herter, a really interesting guy. That guy is bonkers. I hope to have him on my podcast because the stuff he talks about is super nuts. But one of the things I really enjoyed is he talked about something called the formula for truth. And it's basically like, say the Earth is round up here and the Earth is flat down here, or like you're all for circles and this is square, or like you're super Catholic and then this is an atheist. Rather than like battling the other person, if truth is like an XY axis, listen to somebody with the opposing view, like it's Earth. So I did this when I got flat Earth. I didn't think the Earth was flat. I listened to this guy for like 2 hours. He gave me so much information. I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, that's a pretty convincing argument, all the stuff he was saying. But at the end of it, it was so fascinating because I had different views on life and like just the way that my mind thought about a few things, because if he's over here way up on the x-axis and I'm way down here, 45 degrees is in the middle. So we're usually battling for our side, like this is right and that's the way, and if you do it wrong, I hate you, and you're the devil or whatever the case is. But if you listen to somebody, you're going to learn something you probably didn't know, and it doesn't mean you have to change your opinion. It means you get to understand a person more. you learn more, you grow more, and you get to see more of the scope of information. And with more information, you can make a more educated decision, and you can, rather than confirming beliefs that may or may not be true, you're going to be open to expanding and directing your own path in a way that serves you, rather than being like a whack-a-mole person for everybody who doesn't believe something that you believe.
Right. Right. I like the whack-a-mole term. That's good. Yeah. So a lot of people will, it's like they're helping those that are suppressing them, feeding them false information. And then they go after those that won't even be like in the subject matters. Like all of a sudden, oh, well, you know this, and I read this on the internet, and oh man, you do work for the devil. So it's internets. I think that internet with the Z should be the new emoji. It's the internets. It's the
internet. Where all great information comes from.
But you know what, though, at the same time, dude, you can get so much amazing stuff. You just cross-reference it, right? So,
yes,
because it's connected to everything. So not everything, but it's connected to so much. I can meet people from around the world. There's about 20 different countries now that have got a Leak Project hat.
No way.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's a lot.
Cool.
It's
yeah,
a lot.
Man.
It's a lot. Yeah. Because I did a giveaway a while ago, and people like, oh, okay. I ended up, oh, this person's in Finland. Oh, this person's in France. Oh, I mean, I sent someone in Transylvania recently, a cap. So yeah, dude, it's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, this has been a pleasure, man. I'm so glad to have you on the other side of the mic. You're such a fun guy, and I love how you dive into these rabbit holes. And sometimes I'll email you and try to get your opinion on certain things, because I know you have fun with it, but you're a serious researcher and you're looking for the truth too. And you're going through stuff that interests you, just trying to find more information. And as you do that, it's like you only know a little bit of a little bit. Like you said, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know a damn thing, and you're just like sharing the bits and pieces. And the more that we work together to hear other people's opinions, to be open-minded, to do some freaking research and have the courage to share that research, rather than just saying this is blatantly wrong, say, you know what, this is an opposing opinion that might help you see more truth. That's way more beneficial. So is there anything that you wish that I'd asked or that you want to add before we close this awesome episode with pyramids behind my head and you just saying entertaining crap the whole time?
Dude, I got a pyramid behind my head. Do you know what? That's a synchronicity, right?
Yeah, man.
Look.
Oh, yeah, you do. I can see it. I'm surprised that's not over your head during each broadcast, your own Faraday cage.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised about if that thing sucked you up and then you were an AI or something. It won't surprise me. But if you do go on a spaceship, pick me up.
Dude.
I'm a good guy. If it's a good spaceship, anyway.
Yeah, definitely, man.
If it's the wrong one, do not come by.
I had that thing over the bed for a while, right? And Kristen's like, take it down. I'm like, no. And so anyway, I said, fine. So here it is. I figured I spend more time down here anyway. So, and yep, when I'm in the spaceship, Matt, I'll come by and say hello, bro.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Oh, LeakCon's coming up. 4/4/2020. LeakCon 4/4/2020, Boulder, Colorado. LeakCon 4/4/2020, Boulder, Colorado. You're going to be there, everybody that's listening to this podcast right now.
That's in April next year?
Yes, April next year. And the date is perfect, the way that it came together.
You didn't even invite me last time, bro.
Dude, last time, I didn't even know what was going on until I was like...
I just see all these pictures of the boys there. Nobody invites me. It's like, come on. I'll be at this one. I'll come to this one.
You better be at this one. Why do you think I'm telling you about it? Because last time it all got put together so quick. I'm like, oh, wait. Diamond's like, yeah, dude, I already got everybody booked. I'm like, oh, you did? I'm like, all right.
I come as a participant, bro. I like Boulder too. I want to come check it out. I said I should come down there for a snowboard too.
Dude, you better be there.
Yeah. Where can people find more about you, man? Like if they want to look at some of your videos and other stuff.
Leakproject.com.
You got any favorite videos over there? There's like 5,000.
There's 2,800 almost, and hundreds of podcasts. You're close. I'll be there next year. I'll be up there by next year. Because I've only been doing this for a few years, man. That's wild. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, if somebody did a podcast every day for 10 years, that I'll be at that. So
I throw an immense amount of podcasts, bro. And I've been doing it for 4 years. I'm at like episode 3. This is like 310 or something.
And that's awesome,
beast, bro. You're a beast.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, I'm crazy. I'm out of my mind. Like I'm over there. I'm over there. I'm right here. I mean, watch Mr. Robot. Like, dude, like that's what it's like in my mind sometimes. I think I'm talking to somebody and I'm talking to myself. And then I'm talking to Zorg and then I'm talking to Ozzy Stern. It's just crazy. I'm like, oh, whoa, what's going on? So anyway, no, go to leakproject.com. And wait, did you hear that? I think that was Zorg. Leakproject.com, 2,800 podcasts, hundreds are exclusive there. And there's a lot of exclusive content at leakproject.com. And some of the favorites, yeah, dude. I went to Blythe. I uncovered these geoglyphs that are 100 feet across in the middle of the desert. They'll look like giant petroglyphs on the ground. I got footage of that from the drone. I went over China Lake at 10,000 feet elevation when the one day out of like forever when somebody would actually be allowed to fly over China Lake, I had that opportunity. I flew over in a Cessna. I got just amazing footage of that. It looks like a giant circuit board out there in the desert. I went out to, what else was a good one? My friend Ransom and I discovered this not gold mine, this abandoned mine in Colorado at 9,000 feet elevation. It had dozens of buildings, and we walked through these buildings like we were in the film Resident Evil, and we found this one laboratory with a foot deep of x-rays of all of these people that had their chests x-rayed, and almost everyone we looked at, you could see all this crap in their chest. And then this whole town was abandoned abruptly. And there was another location that was abandoned abruptly, and they didn't say why, but that was really weird, man. And we got all this great footage of this entire town out there. So yeah,
you went to a town in a building, into a room that had x-ray footage of weird crap happening to people's chests, like some out of a scary movie.
Dude, it was like a scary freaking movie. I am not even exaggerating. You watch the footage.
Frigged up, man. What are you doing?
It's crazy, yeah. And then these people turned parts of this place into like a skateboard park. So they were spray painting stuff on the walls, like this is the last building they ever saw, and like all this spooky stuff, half dead. And oh, dude, I saw a ghost in one of these buildings, and Ransom saw something in this building. And then we went outside and looked, and at separate times, and the outside of the building, it said, no, inside the building where there was a bathtub, it said something like someone died here or something like that. And outside there was spray paint on it that said ghost or something. It was spooky, dude. It's all in the footage. You should watch it. It's creepy.
That sounds nuts, dude.
It's crazy. Yeah.
That sounds nuts. Well, that's the interesting too. Like when you show up in these different spaces and you go as deep as you do, like me going to Egypt, and like I like to show up and kind of see what's there, and you're doing that too. So you end up getting some fascinating, weird stuff, man. But yeah, stay safe, stay cool, dude. But thanks so much for coming on the show. I appreciate what you do. Any final words?
Yeah, thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate everybody, even the guy in there that's calling me a shill and a false prophet and all this stuff. Hey man, I never claimed to be a prophet. So I'm just a conspiracy scientist in the garage in Colorado. So if you don't like it, don't watch, man. He's like, I used to watch him all the time. And then once you know, man, he's a false prophet. When in the hell did I claim to be a prophet, dude? I'm far from a prophet. Don't call me a prophet.
I'm the one with the beard, man. You know what I mean? It's just, come on, guys. Like, just people. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice that they're still watching. And I think that it's good that I don't think you put out anything that is like 100% serious. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. People are strange.
The day you see me 100% serious, you better go in your bunker if you've got one.
Yep. Yeah, man. Well, I like how you do it, man. It's always fun. It's always fun to watch your videos. You cover so much interesting stuff, and you do it like kind of in a peculiar way, and it's very lighthearted, and it makes it more entertaining. So I always think about trying to do the podcast a little bit more lighthearted when I see you do your thing. So thanks, man, for coming on the show. All the work you do. You're a fascinating guy, man. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and hearing your side of the story after so many incredible videos. And I look forward to more of your content and research. And if you ever discover something, definitely keep me in the loop. Let me know what's good.
Oh, I will, bro. Thank you for the opportunity, Matt. You're a legend, man.
Thanks, buddy.
We'll
see you soon.
See ya. Cheers.
Peace.
We come in peace.